Welcome, everybody, to something we're going to call Games for Everyone, featuring all of these fine gentlemen. Let's start with Mr. Gardner Bryant.
Yeah, so my name is Gardner Bryant. I have a YouTube channel called Gardner Bryant. Very self-obsessed, but whatever. I have a website called The Bryant Review. We talk about Linux, video games, free and open source software, the Fediverse, self-hosted, all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. And for the last, 4 or so years, 5 maybe even, I've been talking about almost nothing on my channel but the Steam Deck. I love the Steam Deck. It's super cool. So I think that's why you invited me, Jason.
It is, but not just that. I mean, you are old school when it comes to Linux gaming. So you've tracked it since day one, probably just like Liam has. And I just wanted to say that I think you're an exceptional writer. I didn't realize that until you launched the Bryant Review and I really started reading it on a regular basis.
Thank you.
You're an exceptional writer, so just kudos, that's all.
I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Liam Daw, gamingonlinux.com. Oh, you're supposed to say that. Well, go.
Well, you did it for me now, but yeah, I'm Liam, run gamingonlinux.com, run it for probably 16, 17 years now. Just covering.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah, a very long time now. The industry has ridiculously changed in that time as well. It's hard to keep up now. I get like 40, 50 emails a day at this point. It's just madness.
Emails from who?
Just everyone, publishers, indie developers, everything.
That's so great.
Madness.
That's so great. It's really awesome. I was at a point like that when I was doing Insomnia Radio back in like 2005, and I would have just like 100 band submissions a day, and it was difficult because you can't, you physically, mentally cannot cover everything that you want to cover.
Yeah, for the first time ever, I've had to set up email filters to try and put things in boxes for me to go through. And it's just, there's not enough time, man. I mean, there's hundreds of games releasing all the time. It's too much.
And it probably makes your job more difficult that indie games are actually on the rise again. I mean, when you want the quality, indie games are where it's at, not AAA gaming. And there's so many more of those. Because they don't cost $400 million to make. So Liam, something I wanted to ask you is, I guess, like if you were to look at your traffic stats, what do you find is consistently the most popular type of gaming content for your site?
Generally, anything to do with Valve is, again, just the line goes up like that,
Yeah. Gotcha. And finally, Mr. Nick at the Linux Experiment. I've always just referred to you as Nick at the Linux Experiment because you don't ever blast your last name out there, and I tend to forget it. So
yeah, it's probably unpronounceable for anyone who's not French.
You have a last name?
Right? It is at the Linux Experiment, but pronounced in French.
Tell us what you've been up to since we were all last together in mid 2022.
Yeah, well, the channel is still going, so it's still the Linux Experiment. There's not as much experimenting, more news and reviewing these days, but yeah, it's the usual, like daily news podcast and just weekly news roundup for people who didn't catch the daily shows, and some reviews here and there for desktop environments, distros, new apps. I also lean a bit on privacy, the open web browsers, sometimes the Fediverse a little bit as well, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's been 8 years now for the channel, and it's been my main job for 3, which
job for 3.
Yeah,
congratulations on
it's
that.
Really nice.
That's great.
Awesome.
Tell us how awesome things are in France and Germany right now with regards to open source and government and schools. And I just want to blast this out everywhere possible because it's incredible news.
Yeah, there's been a lot of movement on that front. I think that the tensions between the EU and the US have just driven a lot of public institutions in France and Germany to try and look at moving to LibreOffice, moving to Nextcloud, outside of the usual Microsoft Office stuff. So it's still a long way away from the whole country moving to those things, but things are shaking up, and I think it's cool. We'll see if in 5 or 10 years they stick to it, or if they do the usual revert, because that's what happened in Germany plenty of times. But I'm kind of optimistic about it.
I was trying to tally the numbers in my head in that segment that you did, and it was something like 500,000 people.
Yeah, I think if you add up all the different institutions and ministries in France, it's got to be like 650. But their end goal is like 1.2 million, which is a lot of users on Nextcloud. That's not Linux. That's just Nextcloud. Yeah,
but it's not subscription money going into Microsoft's pocket anymore.
Exactly,
and that hopefully will make them sit up and pay attention. But I doubt it will. Anyway, that's great news. We are here to talk about video games, specifically video games on Linux. I'm sure that Liam and Gardner especially can attest to the fact that gaming on Linux has changed so dramatically in the last 15 years and even the last 5 years that it's probably barely recognizable. And I what I love is the fact that we all did we got together for a roundtable about Steam Deck right after it launched. And that's an interesting time capsule to go back to and then compare it to this. And so what I wanted to do is just go around the room and ask how your gaming habits have changed since the Steam Deck launched. Is it still part of your daily gaming routine? Have you switched to a different device?
Well, for me, it's interesting because when it first came out, obviously I was doing basically everything I could on the Steam Deck, but things change over time. And now I sort of have more specific games that I'll play on the Steam Deck compared to the PC, because obviously the Steam Deck isn't good at certain types of games. It's better to play them on an actual PC, but the comfort of it has never gone away. Like right now, I'm going through Cult of the Lamb on the Steam Deck, and that on my sofa or in bed is just fantastic. And I played through the entirety of Dispatch, quite a recent release, on Steam Deck in bed. And that was it was amazing. It's so good. But then for stuff like shooters, I'll be jumping onto my PC for that, because you just can't beat mouse aim. And that's actually one of the things that really annoys me about the industry, is how consoles are built around the controllers and they are basically built-in auto aim. But you try and do controller shooters on PC, whether that's Windows, Linux, Steam Deck, anything, you don't get that. And it's so much harder to aim and you're at such a disadvantage. So yeah, my gaming is very firmly split between PC and Steam Deck.
Have you found any reason to upgrade or switch away from the Steam Deck to a different handheld?
Personally, no, because, well, obviously I'm a Linux guy. I appreciate everything that Valve's doing when it comes to supporting open source and Proton and stuff like that. But for me, the Steam Deck, for the games that I want to actually play on a handheld, or if I'm docking it up to my TV, they all work fine. I don't really see a need for it. Like, I'm not jumping into every brand new AAA release as they come out, because most of them just don't interest me. Like, I don't care about Call of Duty version 100,
Yeah. And you're not alone. That's a sentiment that's spreading I feel like it's spreading at an equal pace as people getting disenchanted with Windows and looking at alternatives, in the Linux space. Like these are kind of going at the same rate in my view anyway. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I had a sort of on and off gaming relationship, I'd say, for the past few years. I think I just got bored with the AAA games like most people, but it started like 3 or 4 years ago, and it stopped me from gaming for a while, and I actually resumed playing games, I think 6 months ago, and I basically just play indie titles now. So most of them are played on the Steam Deck as well, because it's just like a great fit for that. You just pick it up from the couch, turn it on, you launch the game, it just works. You have no updates, no weird stuff, no nothing. And every time I want to play like something a bit more demanding, or I want to have more of a cinematic experience, like a horror game, I just started Soma, which I had never done before. And so my girlfriend was sitting next to me. She wanted to see what it looked like and be immersed in the thing. So I turned on the gaming PC that is plugged into my TV, and we played that on the TV. But generally, I just pick up the Steam Deck, play for an hour and a half, any type of game, really. I also just finished Dispatch. Like, I saw you writing it in the show notes. I was like, oh, what is that? Downloaded it, finished it in 6 hours. I just couldn't put it down at all. So it's mostly Steam Deck and then the PC, but the PC is also running Linux. It's on Nobara, which is not that great in my experience, but it's been fine. And yeah, Steam Deck and TV when I want a more cinematic experience. I don't really play games that absolutely require a mouse and keyboard, although that will change with Dawn of War 4 and Total War 40K, which will, I guess, consume my entire life. But
yes.
That's about it.
Gardner, hit us.
Yeah, so my gaming habits haven't really changed that much at all since the launch of the Steam Deck. Even before the Steam Deck, like, I mostly played on my living room gaming PC with a controller. And that had, at the time, I think it had Chimera. So, like, it's always been kind of like a controller-driven experience. Most of the games I like to play are indie games. I don't really care for shooters that much. And the only really, like, PC-centric games that I like are, like Command & Conquer or SimCity or something like that. So I still play those on my PC. But for the most part, the Steam Deck replaced my living room gaming PC, except for like the VR space, right? So yeah, it hasn't changed a whole lot.
As far as my situation, I was at Forbes in the interim in the last few years. I'm not there anymore, but I briefly was covering the handheld gaming space, and I was always tempted away from the Steam Deck by the Legion Go or the original ROG Ally, and not with Windows, I have to say, but with Bazite. Bazite, it feels almost on parity with SteamOS on the deck. If, it's going to feel almost exactly like the same experience. But it was the hardware that it was either, the battery didn't last long enough or it was just not ergonomic and comfortable enough for me. But I finally, just a few months ago, I did switch away from my beloved Steam Deck and got the Legion Go S powered by SteamOS. This is the Z1 Extreme version. So I'm 50 years old now, and it's like the extra inch on this screen is a huge deal to me. It makes a massive difference, and that was a lot of the consideration. But I also think it's just the most comfortable handheld device that's come out since the Steam Deck.
It's got a higher resolution screen, hasn't it?
It does. Yeah. It's
That was one of the major problems of the Steam Deck is the text clarity.
1920 by 1200, 16:10 aspect ratio. And it's a fantastic experience. I hope we see more handheld devices with SteamOS on it. I really do. But yeah, I still love handhelds. I've also gravitated probably more towards indie games than AAA games. So I think we're all pretty much in the same boat. So the joke is that Valve finally learned to count to 3 and announced 3 new hardware products, which we hope one of them will ship with another product that ends in 3. I know that the analysis and the actual like news recap has been done to death. So I wanted to figure out just a more organic way to talk about Valve's overall hardware strategy, their impact on Linux gaming, and kind of what you guys are most excited about and apprehensive about when it comes to mainly the Steam frame and the Steam machine. I think we don't have to spend any time on the controller if you don't want to. I think the controller's rad. I'm definitely going to get one. I'm definitely going to get all of them, whether it's, Valve sending review units or out of my own pocket.
I will be first in line for the Steam controller too.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm
let's
very
start.
intrigued by it. Yeah.
Okay, let's start with that, because Liam, you just reminded me that some people pre-ordered a Steam Deck like 2 minutes after it went live on the store, and they got theirs a year later, and there were like tracking websites dedicated to like figuring out here's when I ordered, when am I going to get my deck? Do you think that same experience will happen with the Steam machine and the Steam frame?
I don't think it will, really. I think the one it might happen around is probably the Steam frame. But I don't think something like that will happen with the controller or the Steam machine. I mean, people have already got, their computers, their Steam Deck, other handhelds and so on, whereas the Steam frame is, in a way, it's pretty radical compared to what's already out there, especially with things like FX to allow developers who already have VR games on other platforms to bring it pretty much straight over to it, and that it will play flat games as well on it. So it's rad. It's cool. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got a Valve Index sat right next to me, and the idea of not having a wire is going to be bliss.
Yeah, I used to have the PlayStation VR back when I had a PS4, and you got tangled in the cable all the time. And it wasn't even a hard setup. Like, you didn't have to wire cameras to your ceiling or whatever. It was just using like a weird PlayStation camera and some PS moves and some light tracking. But the cable was like 2 or 3 HDMI stuff bundled in one, just trailing around in your living room. You just put your feet in it, you tripped all around. It's just, so I almost died twice at least playing that stuff. Yeah. The small table, like, it was aiming for my head.
We came up with just putting a square mat on the floor so you can feel your feet on that. So you know if you're turning or if you're going off the mat.
That's really smart, actually. I tripped repeatedly when because my last real VR experience was the HTC Vive. And there was a launch window game for it called Hollow Point. And it was just like basically like an archery game, like an archery combat game. And you were constantly just like dancing all around, just, doing flipping 180s and ducking and all that stuff. And that cable just constantly get wrapped around my ankle or my arm. And so I'm also very excited about going wireless. And
wireless does concern me a little bit, though, because even with the Valve Index, this was before I came up with the mat idea of knowing where I am. I've literally punched my window with the controller in the hand. So,
oh my gosh,
it also kind of scares me a little bit on what I might do.
Too much freedom can be dangerous.
Do you think they'll have some kind of boundary system like other devices have had?
Well, the Index in Steam VR does have a boundary system, but when you start really getting immersed in a game, you don't notice it. You're not looking for it, and it's
Well, okay, we're clearly starting with the Steam frame. And that has so much more, in my view, more important implications to Linux gaming. And like it's a computer, you guys. It's not just a VR device, it's a computer. Yeah. I can have a KDE desktop and like flip the cube like this, maybe just whoosh, whoosh, I don't know. But yeah, the fact that it can play, I mean, everything technically.
So everything that Proton and SteamOS will run in some form on the Steam frame. It all depends on the power of the Steam frame. You might have to stream it from a computer like the Steam machine.
Yeah. My understanding is that like Half-Life Alyx is not going to run on the device, at least
natively.
Not at launch.
Right.
It's good. You stream that from like a dedicated PC.
From your Steam machine is what Valve hopes you'll do. Yes. Yeah. What do you guys think about FX and the potential to be playing all of your Android games as well, both flat and VR Android games on top of everything else?
Much like with Proton, Valve are going to change the entire industry. Like Valve are the ones that founded FX. If you looked at the recent news and like the 7-year celebration of the FX team, and people are already using it to run main games on their Android phones. Like people are using it in industries that is not even technically what the actual design of it was for. Like Valve wanted this for themselves. But again, because it's open source like Proton, people are doing crazy things with it, playing Hollow Knight and stuff on their phones. It's incredible. And when it's out there properly with the Steam machine, the Steam frame and so on, we're going to see such a crazy shift in the industry. Next year is going to be insane.
Yes.
I personally don't really have an interest in playing Android games on another device because I think, like, generally the games that I want to play are already on Steam or others. But the ability to play games on Android is great. And I'm also thinking about a more wider compatibility thing, which is not necessarily gaming, but I think all they've built could also be used to just run Android apps on stuff like the Steam Deck, the Steam Frame, or whatever. So you could maybe get your streaming apps with a nice little VR display. I think that's something in the realm of possibility. So that's also something I'm excited for.
I think Lepton specifically is not necessarily just for like Android games, but I think it's also to make an easy transition for developers who've published VR titles on something like Oculus. I think that's really going to be a huge deal, because there are a lot of Oculus games that are just exclusive to Oculus. They don't support PC VR, and that is a major hurdle for VR gaming in an open ecosystem. I think Valve recognizes that, and I think their primary motivation for Lepton is something like bringing over Oculus titles.
Is that something that Meta has the technical or legal ability to block?
Well, I mean, if a game is like published on like Oculus, then it probably is using some like Oculus libraries or something.
Yeah.
I think they might also have agreements with studios to like, you're only going to publish this on our platform. But barring those things, or like, you know, if a developer is just like, hey, if we just strip out the Oculus dependencies, we can put it on Steam, and suddenly we have a whole other market that we didn't have access to before.
Yeah, unless there's some sort of special publishing agreement, there's no way they could block it realistically.
And what developer is going to say no if they can do minimal amount of work to have 3 times a larger audience, right?
Meta owns a lot of the studios that are publishing exclusives on their headsets, so it's like, you know, there's like a small Venn diagram, I think, of titles that are just exclusive to Oculus, but it still exists, and having more games available on Steam that are VR is going to be good for everybody. Developers, gamers, everyone.
And I think you're also, with the Steam Frame, you're providing like some kind of reference PC device, like from a known manufacturer. They have the store for the game, they have the device, it's tested, you have all the integrated bricks to port your game over. So it probably motivates studios a bit more to do the work, instead of saying, hey, we could take our Oculus game and port it to whatever headset has been announced, but like, it's going to be bought by 1,000 people. Will it really work? It has its own store. Is it worth it? Like, it's Steam. It's Valve. Like, of course, if you have the opportunity, you're doing it. It's just mass market appeal for VR, at least.
It opens up another avenue as well. So because it, again, like Proton, it's all open source, there's going to be nothing stopping other VR developers, like hardware vendors, of using that as well on their own devices. So it's just going to open up the industry when it comes to ARM and VR.
Yeah. In the best case scenario, maybe we see more, I don't want to call them copycats, but you know, no one outside of Nintendo Switch, there was no mainstream interest in portable PC handheld gaming devices until the Steam Deck launched, and then everybody, you know, Asus and Lenovo and everybody else was like scrambling to get their MSI, you know, scrambling to get their device out to the masses. So I think it'd be so cool if we saw people doing exactly that with you know, with Steam OS VR devices.
Yeah.
With OLED lenses. Dang it.
We don't
OLED, OLED displays and pancake lenses would be
genuinely. I don't think OLED's the right technology in its current state for headsets, because there's a much greater fall off in the persistence of the image on an OLED, which means that there's more blur, and like you're going to have interference with the previous frame. The only way to like really correct that on an OLED is black frame insertion. And then you're like having the perceived brightness of the image. And already OLEDs are pretty, behind pancake lenses are already pretty dark. So all 3 of those things really kind of conspire to make TN or whatever what their Valve is using, the better option. It's not ideal. It doesn't have the same contrast ratio or whatever, but like, I think Valve made the right choice with the panel that they chose.
That's good insight. I hadn't heard that argument before, but I agree. So remember how vital a website like ProtonDB.com was back when Proton launched, and several years after. I'm not sure how relevant it is today at the end of 2025, because in the last year and a half, I have not come across a game that didn't just install and play on whatever Linux distro I was using. So it's not like, I mean, back in 2022, right, when this was all brand new and shiny, I at least was constantly going to ProtonDB. Will this game work? What tweaks do I need to do? Oh, line tricks and this. Okay. Do you think we'll see like a FexDB pop up? Do you think we'll see kind of that same cycle?
Well, to your first point, I think I still use ProtonDB once a week, maybe, with the kind of stuff I talk about. What was it? The last game I tried, Split Second. Like it's a racing game that was on the 360.
It's awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
Right up there with Blur, also on the 360. Yeah. Blur was fantastic for racing. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I wanted to play that on my I almost said 360, my Steam Deck, and I got it installed, and then I could not figure out how to. It worked like just out of the box, but I could not figure out how to actually get the resolution to like stick. It started at like 640 by 480 or something, and then I had to like go in and do a bunch of stuff that I found on ProtonDB in order to get it to actually keep the resolution I wanted.
Gotcha.
I mean, most games will just work out of the box, but there are some like lingering issues that I faced that ProtonDB is invaluable for.
It all depends on how many games you play. Like with the amount of games I go through testing and writing up and so on, Proton's come on, in the time since the Steam Deck come out, it's come along massively. But at the rate of games that are releasing and developers doing all kinds of weird shit, there's still a lot of games that have a lot of issues, and some of them are, really minor issues, but there's still so many launch commands that games need to work properly.
Okay.
There's still a long way to go to get real out of the box compatibility on everything. But
see, it's nice to have that reality check, because I've been over here and like, everything's perfect land and not had any problems, but I don't do the same level of testing that I used to do and the same level that you do.
Yeah, generally, when I buy games on the PC itself, which is like I'm just using the Steam store with the full screen interface, I do not even look at compatibility ratings before I buy. And most of the times, there's no issue. Sometimes they're like, oh, this doesn't work fully at 4K, or it hasn't picked up on my AMD GPU specifically, so it's trying to run on the integrated GPU, so the performance is horrendous. It happens very rarely, but from time to time, you do have to take a look at the database. But I don't think I need to check it before buying, because I know I don't buy games on the day they release, so generally they just work. But sometimes, there's that little problem that you need to solve, and it's helpful for that.
I think when Valve roll out because right now you've got Steam Deck verified as a system across, unsupported, playable, and verified, and they're going to expand that for Steam Frame and Steam Machine. So this will all be shown on the Steam store. I think you'll need Proton database even less over time than we need it right now, because you'll have Valve's own rating to look at, and as long as you're going for games that are verified, then you shouldn't have an issue. Well, famous last words. There are games that are verified that do have issues, but that's a whole nother argument. But for the most part, it is correct.
That's actually, okay, that leads us into something really interesting to me. So there is, actually, who wrote this about support on the language evolving from developers, like Steam Deck native, support on Linux?
Oh, that's me.
Okay, do you want to intro this? Because I'm just like fumbling my words.
It's interesting because if you go back in the Linux gaming sphere far enough, you would have, before Proton, people were arguing constantly for native Linux support for games, or people were trying and mostly failing to get things to work in Wine, apart from a few select titles that worked really well. And then Proton came along, more and more people were playing games in Proton. 99% of people gaming on Linux don't care whether it's on Proton or whether it's Linux native, and that is just the simple reality. But it's interesting to see how the language around it has evolved from things like native Linux, or it's a Windows game in Proton, and then you've got like Baldur's Gate 3 came along and said we are Steam Deck native, and they're very specific. This is Steam Deck native, but it is just a native Linux version, but they're only specifically supporting it on the Steam Deck. And you had Chronos New Dawn did exactly the same thing. And then when speaking to developers about it, so many of them still don't even know what Linux is. So you have to talk very specifically about Steam Deck, SteamOS, and then some are even like, what the hell SteamOS? It's like, how can you not know at least what SteamOS is at this point in time?
We are admittedly in a bubble. It is or let me say an echo chamber, not a bubble. This is not a bubble, not at all. We're in an echo chamber, and it's admittedly a large and growing echo chamber, but still an echo chamber. I was actually talking to Mike Kelly a couple days ago, and he regularly has he's working with people in his community to get them machines that have Linux on them. And he always has stories like, yeah, this lady asked me to install Windows Mint, and
Windows Mint.
But that that kind of, I think that ties into what Liam's saying, is that for them it's probably all about that brand recognition, right? If you say Linux support, not only are the developers going to be in trouble because that opens a huge can of worms. Just saying we support Linux, I mean, that's asking for buckets of support problems, admittedly. I think it's a branding and marketing tactic more than recognition,
definitely.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Because the funniest one is where I get an email saying, no, we don't support Linux at all, but it works great on Steam Deck. And it's like, that is Linux. You can go into a whole complete desktop of Linux on it. But I mean, it's an argument that's not worth going through. You just kind of go, okay, yeah, fine,
right,
whatever.
Yeah.
You have to move on from it.
In my experience, the popular culture's understanding of Linux is matrix code, right? Like it's like the terminal, DOS prompt, primitive, old, right? That's what most people think. That's the image that conjures in most folks' mind when they hear the term Linux. And I made a conscious decision quite a while ago to say SteamOS when I mean Linux, and it irritated some people. But it's like, who am I making my content for? I'm not making it for people who are already Linux gamers, right? I'm making my videos to bring people on board and to get them through the door and to realize that the Linux gaming experience is just better in most ways. And so I totally sympathize with this, because it's like Valve is doing so much. They're moving heaven and earth in a way that no other company has ever done for Linux gaming or PC gaming even. It's kind of wild what they're doing here.
I mean, Microsoft certainly isn't doing anything. And I know people listening to this are going to be like, oh, big surprise, the Linux for everyone guy and all of his friends are against Microsoft. But look at how stagnant DirectX has been. They've done nothing for DirectX in 5 or 6 years. They only submitted recently to the pressure of SteamOS and Steam Deck.
It's funny because Valve did the exact same to Microsoft before. If you remember when they were talking about when they were bringing the Steam, Left 4 Dead and so on over to Linux, and they were doing the blog posts about how much faster they got OpenGL compared to DirectX. They lit a fire under Microsoft to go back to DirectX and improve it again, and they've done the same.
Yeah, I mean, that was why we got DirectX 11, right?
Very reactionary and not innovative.
And I think they're just moving out of the platform business anyway. They just want to sell services that you can run almost anywhere. Their games, their services. They don't care about the Xbox specifically. They're not trying to bring you another games for Windows Live or whatever. So,
oh God,
fortunately,
PTSD, man.
Yeah. But I think they're just giving up on all of that stuff. So maybe they still want to build the technology behind it. I don't think they're going to be abandoning DirectX anytime soon. But
Yeah.
I think they just see any platform as a way to sell some stuff and make some money through that, and the lockdown doesn't seem to serve them that well. So
Windows is a platform now for selling services.
yeah, exactly.
That's all it is. Windows has a 1% higher rate of profit than gaming does. Only 1% larger than Xbox. So, yeah.
And they want to drastically improve the profitability of Xbox as well, because that's all the recent changes that they've been doing. It's because they want to drive the Xbox entire division profit margin up to, I think, 30% when they're at like 17, I think. So they're clearly seeing those things as just a vessel to sell some stuff. The platform doesn't matter to them anymore.
This makes me think about this growing dissatisfaction and vocal dissatisfaction about Windows gaming from traditional mainstream outlets like The Verge, and then more enthusiast places like Linus Tech Tips and Gamers Nexus. They're all bashing Windows constantly. The Verge is thinking about devoting a lot more coverage to Linux in 2026. But my question is, what happens if Microsoft actually fights back and goes, well, here's Windows 11G, a stripped down, this is just like Windows OS for gaming, and that's it.
Yeah. So the full screen Xbox experience has been gradually rolling out, across different devices.
Yeah.
It will be on desktop as well. And they've even done like a Windows technical blog post recently saying, how they're dedicated to bringing down the list of processors that are running and stuff and make Windows the best platform for gaming and stuff like that. So they're already going down that road. The problem is they're saying all this while shoving all this AI stuff into Windows and annoying people even more. So
yeah, and I hear you, and that's what I mean. But they're not going so far as to say, here's a different version of Windows with no Teams, no OneDrive, no Copilot. None of that's installed. It's just resources geared towards efficient, powerful gaming. Like, would they go that far if gaming is so important to their business?
The problem is Microsoft as an organization is just not structured in a way where they can deploy a lean, focused team to make a singular product. The thing is, Microsoft is so captured by the current moment of enshittification that that will be their undoing in the desktop space, right?
Agentic OS.
Yeah,
right.
Not working out very well for them so far, by the way.
No, and if you have if you are in an industry like gaming, for example, where there is just one player who isn't running by the rules of enshittification, you are giving up your entire market share. It just takes one player like Valve who is actually interested in making sustainable profit and not enshittifying their platform for you to just lose everything as to the competitor. And that's exactly what Microsoft's doing.
And I'm pretty sure that Microsoft as a corporation just has so many conflicting incentives. Like, if you start building a Windows G, you're going to have the AI division knocking on the door saying, AI for games is actually pretty cool, and you should have Copilot in there to get game guides and achievement guides. Yes. And then you'd get the OneDrive player saying, hey, maybe we can store game saves in OneDrive, so you should pre-install it as well. I don't think you can wean yourself off of all those other business units in Microsoft. I don't think they're able to do that.
Which is why they're just doing it as a mode on top of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, and especially
adds even more overhead on top of the system that is already extremely heavy.
Yeah, and also the fact that cloud makes up a huge portion of their income where desktop doesn't. It's like, is Microsoft going to see the value in selling Windows 11G to 40,000 special interest PC gamers? No, they're not going to make anywhere near that amount. So they have to bundle in these services to make the money that they would have to invest in it to begin with.
I think they would look at Xbox and saying, we're not even selling those specific PCs, which are PCs, just bundled as a console. We're not selling them. No one buys them. We stopped investing in them. Why are we building an OS specifically for other devices that we don't even make? I don't think they would go there. And as I was saying, I think there's the QA as well. The QA on Windows 11 is atrocious. Literally every single update that rolls out has tons of articles saying how it breaks something, makes the menu crash, destroys the shell, breaks the file manager, like super basic stuff. I don't think they can maintain that version plus the gaming version plus anything else. They fired their QA team a while back, and I think they replaced them with Copilot. So I don't think that's just going to work well.
I love how we can't resist to just shitting on Microsoft.
Well, it's easy to do, isn't it?
Well, look,
I mean,
like,
they've done
I keep,
so many stupid things.
It's not just Microsoft, but AI in general. I regularly go back to all of the tools that are out there, and they all consistently suck.
Yeah.
They're inaccurate. They don't, you have to correct them. Like, that's not what I'm here for.
It's
Anyway,
got to be a tangent, but my girlfriend, I think like a week ago, she said, "Hey, could you find me online a picture of a nice Christmas tree in the middle of a snowy village?" I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to use the latest Google AI to generate you one.
Okay.
It took me longer than just doing a Google search and grabbing
Google
any
image search, yeah.
It just does not obey your commands. Like, it generates me something in landscape. I tell it, put it in portrait. Incapable of doing that. And it just spits the exact same image in landscape. You say, that's not portrait. Please put it in portrait. Doesn't do it. Again and again and again. It doesn't do it. I have to generate a brand new image in portrait, which is the same image it generated previously, except it re-added the people I told it to not add. It's insane. It sucks. It's a terrible system. It wastes time for everyone. I just hate those things so much.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Oh, it's awful.
And they want to give AI agents full control over our OS.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
no, because no, just no.
Well, the thing is, you add in the AI agent on top of the recall that takes screenshots of everything you're doing, and it's I don't understand how anybody thinks these things are a good idea.
Well, it's only the executives in their bubble that think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we see the pushback.
I'm pretty sure even the people developing those things don't like what they're building.
Didn't Microsoft revise their projections for revenue from AI for next year or something because it's just not making the money they thought it would?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know how they're going to make that up now, don't you? They're pre-installing and forcing Copilot onto LG TVs, and you can't remove it.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have the model of LG TV that would receive it, but I have never connected it to my Wi-Fi, so it's not going to get that update.
When will this nightmare end? All right, let's go into happier stuff. But let's talk generally about the Steam Machine.
So I'm excited for it because I have and this is no shade against Bazite at all. I have a Bazite powered gaming PC in my living room. And there are just small inconveniences that I have absolute confidence that just won't be there with the Steam Machine, right? Small things like having to compile shaders before you launch the game. Like that just doesn't exist on the Steam Deck, and it won't exist on the Steam Machine. Like just weird. Sometimes the Steam Compositor will get confused about what game is running, and it'll like just take me to a black screen and it will never show the game. And that doesn't happen on my Steam Deck. There's just little things where, and having full stack control from Valve having full stack, drivers, everything, HDMI CEC, being able to put my device to sleep. All of these things are going to be solved on the Steam Machine where it's just fundamentally almost impossible with something like Bazite or Chimera.
I will definitely validate your paper cuts because I'm using Bazite right now, and while I do love it and I trust it as kind of a production machine, it does have those little niggling issues like even sleep. So I have a tower that's plugged in through DisplayPort, and sleeping and resuming is a nightmare on it. I can't figure out, like, it's just not talking to the TV correctly. I don't know why, and that's a big paper cut for me. So yeah,
I've got the exact same problem with Nobara on my PC. I can't turn it on by turning on the controller, which is like a little problem, but it's annoying. It doesn't auto switch to the right HDMI channel on my TV either. There's the update process, which is not handled through the SteamOS interface, meaning I have to go pick up a keyboard and mouse, which I don't have on my living room. So generally it's just sitting there unupdated for months, which is not great either. Performance problems here and there, the shader compilation stuff. And generally, I think the Steam machine will also bring the SteamOS compatibility, meaning you just don't care about whether a game runs or not. You see it if it runs, you can install it, and it will run. And it will probably run better on the Steam machine than on a comparably spec'd PC, because it is a reference device that developers can optimize for, just like the Steam Deck, where they're not going to optimize for your specific combo of CPU, GPU, or whatever else.
Yeah.
It's funny hearing you guys talk about using like Bazzite and stuff, and you're having all these issues and stuff, and there's me just sat there. I've been waiting years, right? I've been waiting years for a mini PC that has enough power to play all the stuff that I want, that I can just sit at a TV. And it's like Christmas came early and Valve basically said, here is exactly what you've been asking for with the Steam Controller 2 that has the pads and the sticks, and it will turn the device on for you, and it'll go to sleep properly, and it's like everything I've wanted in a little box.
And it's got an SD card slot.
Yeah.
I know. That's huge. That's huge. Steam Deck, boom. Steam machine, click.
Yeah.
You know?
You get that little physical cartridge thing that is so cool with handhelds that I love, so that's cool as well.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about it, honestly. Like, I have a Minis Forum PC that in almost every way is just like one generation in terms of specs behind the Steam machine. And you put Bazzite on there, you plug that in, you can play 4K games. I've played Doom Eternal in 4K on this Minis Forum like mini PC, and it's like mind blowing, right? And then most of the games that I really want to play are indies, and they all work perfectly fine at 4K.
Is it an integrated GPU? It's an
No,
AMD
it's got a
8.
dedicated. Yeah, it's got like 8 gigabytes dedicated, like 6600 or something mobile version.
See, I wanted to get one of the Minis Forum stuff, but again, it's like with the Steam Deck and why I'm not going for another handheld. I know Valve's quality. I know Valve's actual direct support, and buying a mini PC from somewhere like Minis Forum can be so. I don't want to. Like. It can be risky, right?
Yeah.
Because you really don't know what you're going to get, really, and you don't know what their support's going to be like if it breaks in a year's time, whereas you know what's going to happen with Valve.
The other thing about that is like when those are brand new, they don't have great support for Linux out of the box, right? Like the latest Ryzen CPUs just don't have, there's just little weird features that are missing and things are broken. And then by the time the prices come down or there's Linux support for them, then they've made them in such small quantities that there's just not stock available anymore. And so it's really, it's a difficult position, especially if you want something like that. Because you have to buy it on the faith that at some point there will be the drivers and everything in the kernel.
It's the same with like the handhelds from GDP, A&Neo, and so on. They're cranking them out so fast, multiple bottles a year. You don't, again, support. It might not work in a year's time. There might not be any left. They might have just completely moved on. And then
Liam, it's actually that point that has convinced me not to buy from any of those brands, is because every time I turn around, they're releasing an upgraded model. It's like every 6 months they're turning around new handhelds and new, mini PCs, and maybe that's confusing to a lot of people. Going like, wouldn't we be celebrating if we had a Steam Deck 2 by now? Like almost 4 years later, wouldn't we be celebrating that fact? Would we? I don't know. I would. Yeah, I definitely would.
Yeah, I would.
But 4 years is not a year. Like it's
right.
And I think, again, it would be from Valve, a proven company that controls the hardware, the software, the software integration with the hardware, the store. So even if it was once a year, you would probably still trust them to support it and to make it work properly and to not release it until the drivers are actually well cooked and work.
Well, Liam, let me ask you, when did the Valve Index release, and how long did that support last, and has it even ended?
Well, the Valve Index is old now, man.
Yeah.
It's so old. But
2018.
the problem is that Valve's support of Linux VR has never been especially good. Like they haven't really put much effort into it, to be honest. But you're talking about the tiny market of Linux desktop gamers that have a capable PC of properly running VR, and then you're talking about specifically VR.
Slice.
It's the niche and a niche and a niche. You know, it's
That's fair.
Even
That's
for
fair.
Valve, it's not worth putting the effort in. But my hope with the Steam frame is that maybe some of those improvements will trickle down, but they might not, because the Steam frame, you know, it's all built in. So, and it's very different from running something plugged directly into your computer where you've got Steam VR running it then on another device. So
I think there will be like some improvements that come to Linux VR, especially things like Proton's native bridge that lets, you know, Proton games interact with like the native Steam client and things like that. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I have a Index in my living room, and I have to boot into Windows in order to play VR because
I've had to do that a few times.
Yeah, still to this day, I'm super sensitive to like micro stutter in VR and like frame rate drops and all this stuff, and I cannot at all play VR on Linux. It just it doesn't have the timing down or something. I don't know.
It's a technology where you really need to be perfect, exactly perfect, or you're gonna make people sick. It
literally make them sick.
Yeah.
That's fair. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the end of that complaint when the Steam frame launches. You know, speaking of launches, it feels to me overly ambitious for them to be launching all of this hardware in early 2026, and we don't even have price or pre-order information yet.
Well, the problem with that is Valve know the industry right now, especially with RAM prices and so on. If they gave a price when it comes to launching, that price will be completely different. I think they're trying to stop the issues that other vendors have had when they've had to raise the price multiple times. And other, you know, like you've had Framework, the laptop vendor recently, they've had to up their prices, Xbox, PlayStation, and so on. Like everybody's raising prices on everything.
As well. Yeah.
The Switch 2 even got a price hike already, really?
No.
Wow.
Well, it had a price hike right after it was announced, I think. They announced it at a certain price, and I think a month after that they said, due to the tariffs, it's like
it was tariffs
more.
Then, but but I wouldn't be surprised if they do another one. Just, I don't know. They like their profit margins on their hardware, so, you know. Then does it make sense for Valve to come out maybe after New Year's, you know, second week of January, and say, here's the price of the Steam machine and the pre-orders are live?
I think we'll get
on a random Wednesday. Yeah,
we'll get the pricing.
That would be very Valve-like.
The end of February, I reckon.
February. Okay.
Yeah.
I think February with possibly a summer launch, maybe. But I don't think they'll release it all at the same time. The Steam machine and the controller will launch at the same time. I think the Steam frame will be the last to launch.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
It's probably the most complicated device out of all of them.
We might as well just throw our opinions into the hat here. What will the Steam machine cost?
$750, I'm gonna say.
With the controller.
Yeah.
With the
I reckon
I would have been around like
750.
800 without a controller, I would have said.
Yeah. I would like it to be 650 with the controller, but I think it's probably going to be more around 7. I don't think that will they be selling it without the controller?
Yes.
They will.
It is a PC. I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And because because if somebody buys just the Steam controller and then 3 months, a year down the road, they want just the Steam machine, then that's got to be an option.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to say $699 with the controller. And I know that's hopeful.
I think that's wishful thinking.
But you have to remember that while the cost of RAM is egregious right now, Valve kind of takes a Junkyard Wars approach to building their hardware now. I don't know about in the past, but now they do. And they're going to get, I think they're going to get some very deep discounts on the silicon, on the chipset from AMD. And I think they're going to find ways to cut costs, but not cut corners on other aspects of the hardware. So I'm hopeful that it stays under $700. And, I know that they said it's not going to be priced like a console.
Yeah.
They just said it's going to be priced more like a mid-range gaming PC, but that's a huge price range, right?
Yeah, that's like $650 to $1,200, $1,300. Like it's it can be
I guarantee
very,
it'll
very
be under
different.
$1,000. It has to be under $1,000.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
If they price it anywhere near 1,000, then it's gonna be dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Well, it will still appeal to a bunch of us Linux niche gamers, but it's probably never going to reach mass market. Like, you're going to take a look at what it spits out. So you're going to take a look at a PS5, or if you're a mad bastard at an Xbox Series X, and you're going to think, why am I paying $300, $400 more? It doesn't make sense.
And will it come bundled with Half-Life 3?
In that case,
I'll pay $1,000, sure.
When Half-Life Alyx was announced, they were like, if you buy the Index, you get Half-Life Alyx for free. And I was like, are you kidding me? $1,000? Absolutely. And I literally, I bought my Index just to play Alyx. Like, that was the only, I had no other games that I didn't know anything about VR. It was just Alyx. And then that's when I actually got into PC VR and gaming on the Index. But
my shameful secret is I've never played it.
And man,
you're missing out.
Half-Life Alyx is absolutely one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had.
Yes.
It's so good.
I never had the hardware to play it, so I never played it. Yeah.
Let me tell you, like,
first thing on the Steam frame that I definitely buy will be Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, like, if VR gaming was like Alyx, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah.
But because, I mean, like, if you get people into Alyx, it is like you are literally transported to this different space, and it is very cool. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World, but like, when I was 12 years old, I went to Disney, right? And walking through like riding through the Haunted Mansion or like Space Mountain, and there's like that magical experience of just going through. And that is the experience I had as a 30-something-year-old man playing Half-Life Alyx. It was magic.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. The biggest problem is there's so few titles that even come close to Alyx in VR.
I mean, on the PSVR, the only ones that really blew me away were Beat Saber, because that was just a fantastic rhythmic experience that blows your mind, and Super Hot. I remember in Super Hot at some
hot.
Yeah, exactly. I was hiding behind those barrels in the game, and I was so immersed that I tried to push myself up, and there was nothing in front of me, so I fell. And I was like, "That's awesome!"
I'm excited about the possibility of just there being a wider adoption of VR hardware, which will in turn, hopefully, inspire developers to take a stab at it. Because right now, I don't know what the install base of like the MetaQuest is, or I don't, I mean, forget Apple, like whatever Apple's is just not even on the table as far as it's not making an impact. But if you're a game developer, it's almost like saying I'm a game developer and I'm going to make a Linux exclusive game and not release it on Windows. Steam Deck. Right, before the
before the Steam Deck.
Not release it on Windows even, and it's just going to be for Linux users. Like, why would you do that? Yeah. And right now, I feel like, why would you pour all these resources into making this dynamite VR, immersive VR experience if there's just not, the players aren't quite there to justify it yet?
Yeah, I mean, in my own life of people that I know, I can count one other person that has a VR kit, like in real location world friends and so
Right.
on. I've never heard anybody really talk about it, and it's just it is such a niche still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the more you think about it, like you want VR to be more like Star Trek holodeck kind of thing, don't you?
Yes.
Really,
Yeah.
that's what we're all waiting for, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you try and talk to any sort of normal person about VR gaming, and it's like, oh, strap this big thing to your head and hope you don't walk into a wall, kind of thing. It's not selling it to many people. I think it's still going to be a huge challenge until they can get them down to the size of my glasses. It's never realistically going to be this proper mainstream thing.
Not to pile on with pessimism, and I'm I'm normally a pretty biased Valve fanboy, but I have to say that I'm concerned about the battery life on the frame. That's my only concern about it having a wider adoption, is the battery life. If you're playing something really demanding, it's only going to give you 90 minutes to 2 hours. And like, I don't know, if you're watching if I want to watch, the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, can I even finish it? On my big virtual theater, those are the kind of things that concern me about it. But I don't know if that's warranted.
Watching films have been no problem because you're barely using any power to do that, really.
Yeah.
It's the gaming side of it is a concern for the Steam frame is not just the battery life, it's the performance. If their own last generation VR game can't even run on it natively, on the headset rather than streaming, that's going to be... It's going to be an issue, I think. But then again, if it proves popular, developers are going to have to optimize for it. So
my understanding is that it's kind of on par. It's pretty close to the same battery life as the Quest 3. Like I think the Quest has like 2.5 hours or 3 maybe. So it's not that much worse.
And then again, you think about it, playing in VR, you don't generally do it for hours and hours stretches at a time, do you?
You get
because
the weight
it is
on your head. Yeah.
Well, sure.
Like playing Beat Saber is a full body workout.
Oh, that's true.
Definitely.
No, that's absolutely true. I can't play that for more than 30 minutes.
I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I literally use Beat Saber as a way to regulate my blood sugar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dude,
Okay.
I get so hot playing it. I'm not sure if I've said this in public like this before, but I have to get down to my underwear because I just...
Same.
I get so hot. I can't help it.
Yeah.
And somebody walks in and I'm there like this with the hair in my underwear like, hello?
I have to play in like my underwear and a shirt because the wire will like get tangled in my back hair. It's no fun if I don't wear a shirt.
All right, let's jump into we're going to talk about some of the games we've been playing at the end, but let's make this next second to last segment bold predictions for 2026 in Linux gaming. And I don't know if that was on the show notes or not, so I might be surprising you guys. But
all right, I'll take
one
it to start
one
then,
bold prediction. It can be ludicrous or realistic. It doesn't matter. Maybe it'll just generate some interesting discussion.
Well, we hit 3% officially this year. So I think my realistic expectation is we'll hit over 4% throughout next year. And that's before, I reckon we'll hit that before the Steam Machine releases, that Linux as a share of users on Steam will hit 4%, maybe midway through next year.
Before summer 2026 then?
Yeah, around summertime, I reckon. Because it is trending clearly towards that point. And it's not all Steam Deck as well. If you look at the trends, the amount of machines actually using SteamOS is going down, whereas other distros are sort of stabilizing in the middle. So I think realistically 4%. And if you look at the trajectory over the next few years, it will just keep going up. It's slow and steady wins the race, basically.
Liam, with all the discussions you have with game developers, what percentage of market share do you think Linux gaming needs to have for them to start actually paying attention.
I think realistically, once you hit 10%, that is the spot where developers and publishers will really be starting to turn their heads, because that would probably be over 20 million people at that point.
That's
And
significant.
that's not a small market when it comes to
No.
video games.
Is that when we see the end of invasive anti-cheat?
My prediction would be full anti-cheat support by the end of 2026. I think the Steam Machine is what we need to have that, because you can't really say that the Steam Deck is really suited to the competitive shooters and competitive games that really want to have that damn anti-cheat in. So you can always say, hey, yeah, Steam Deck is sort of big, but that's not the platform for our game, so we don't care. Once you have the Steam Machine doing some kind of numbers, some kind of user base, that's the device that you play those games on. That's the device you use a mouse and keyboard on. That's the one that has the oomph to play that. And I think at that point, you have to say, okay, we need to find a solution for the anti-cheat stuff. Now, whether that means we have to implement those horrible things in our computers, or they just get rid of them and go to another model, I don't know. But I would say anti-cheat problems mostly fixed by the end of the year.
Nice. I'm on board for that prediction.
Liam is really unconvinced.
Well, just from what I know of the industry and talking to a few publishers, I would say no, it's not going to happen. Not by the end of 2026, but if the Steam Machine is an actual success, by the end of 2027, now we're talking.
Yeah, because my understanding was that some people are currently working on a multi-kernel support for Linux. And I don't really see what would prevent Valve from working on a dedicated gaming kernel that has the kernel level anti-cheat and use those multi-kernel solutions to load the right kernel for the right game, play that game on the right kernel, and switch to the non-invasive kernel for the rest of the games.
Sounds ambitious, but awesome.
It may not be a 1-year solution.
Right.
Yeah. That's more what I meant.
We still don't have proper
level.
HDR support across the board. So then again, if we see what happens when Valve throws their weight behind something. So Gardner, got anything?
I don't have like a specific Linux gaming prediction, but I think that we're watching, I feel like I've been seeing the hints and indications that people are starting to take their security seriously, and like their online identity, they want to protect that. They want to maintain their privacy a lot more than they ever have before. And I see that leading into Liam's prediction, where it's like people aren't just switching over to Linux for gaming. They're switching over to Linux because it's the more secure option. It's the better option for your digital autonomy. And so I see, like, if the Steam market share gets to 4% on Linux, what's the one that's like browser market share or whatever is going to be bigger than that? Like, it's going to be growing, and it's going to start growing really quickly. And so I think we're going to hit like a critical mass towards the mid to late 2026. And it's really just going to explode from there. Also, maybe we'll see a bunch of like desktop apps, like proprietary desktop apps, like Affinity, like Affinity's apps and stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay. Well, the downside of going last is that 2 of my predictions have already been mentioned. So I'm not going to opt out. I'm not going to pass, but I will say, Liam, I think it's going to be 5% gaming share, and it's going to be 7% browser share by the end of 2026. This isn't really gaming, but I think that we will see a very financially successful, independent gaming distribution that's not SteamOS by the end of 2025. I kind of just came up with that off the top of my head because I didn't want to repeat what you guys said, but I would love to see, a distro that emerges or it already exists that offers, something like Bazite, even though that is propped up by Universal Blue, but they're technically independent, right? I don't know what that looks like specifically, but just an independent gaming distro that offers an alternative to SteamOS that is financially successful. Takes a page from Thunderbird, it takes a page from KDE, and has a really successful fundraising campaign and can just offer, I don't know, more device support, or I don't know what that looks like, but I think we'll see some of these guys come out of the shadows as Linux continues to gain popularity.
Wasn't there something, I think, called Playtron or something, which was a specific distro? Is that the one you're thinking about?
No, it's not. It's absolutely not.
Don't get me started on Playtron. That'll be another hour-long chat about that.
I think it was either Liam or it was Joe Resington who because I spent like kind of 2 years in hibernation. I wasn't paying attention to the daily news cycle, and so I'm catching up on a lot of this stuff. And I heard about Playtron in passing, and I asked somebody, I don't know if it was Liam or Joe, what it was, and all they said was like crypto, and I was like, all right, I'm out. Yeah, no interest. Yeah. Why don't we wrap this up by talking about what games we have been playing this month? Liam.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Well, I've been really into Arc Raiders heavily.
Still addicted.
Well, the thing is, I've put over 130 hours into it, and it's only been out a month now.
It's a part-time job, dude.
I can pass some of it off as work related. It's fine. The novelty and hype around it, for me personally, has worn off quite a lot, but I still enjoy just jumping into it and going for a run through and seeing what chaos happens. But 130 hours is a lot of time for any game, I think. Anyway, and so I got my money's worth out of it. I really love the world that it's in, and just the fact that even the most basic enemies are deadly in it. And all the animations in the enemies is really fucking cool as well. And because it's a PvP game, PvP VE, so it's got NPC enemies, but right around the corner might be another player with their sights on you, or you can be friendly towards each other. I've had so many funny interactions with random people on proximity chat. It's amazing. Like one guy just ran past me and he was playing like some little flute or something, and he was running past me playing the flute, just stopped next to me, played it at me, and then ran off. And it's just the amount of chaos you can have in it is amazing. And
have you found
I love it.
the majority of your human experiences, your human interactions there are friendly or combative? What way does it tip?
It depends on the mood and my own mood, because I've shot a few people in the back as well, and they've been very unhappy with me over proximity chat. It's funny with all the different accents you hear from people as well, because I'm clearly British, and people instantly hook into that when I'm over there, and then they start talking in English, but then you hear all their wonderful accents. And when they start swearing at you in English in these accents as well is quite funny, to be honest. Yeah. And when
if
you
you've
just
recorded any of that, I would love to see it.
It's like when you hear someone screaming in the distance and they come running at you, and you just see this great big thing called a rocketeer that's floating towards you, and you're like,
terrifying.
Shit.
Those are terrifying.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But you can get killed by the smallest NPC enemy in it as well. Like you're running down the stairs in this dark room, and then all you hear is boop boop boop, and then this rollerball, it comes at you and explodes, and they're like one of the most basic things in it, and you're dead, and you're like, okay. Yep. There's lots
High
of little
stakes.
things about it that I appreciate as well.
It's the risk reward that I think makes it so compelling.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
I don't play it as often, but yeah. It's a great game.
It's all the little touches that they put into it. Like even if somebody downs you when you're crawling along the ground, you can still exit the map with everything you've got if you're close enough. It's little things like that.
Yeah. Or you can beg them to revive you. Right?
They can revive you as well.
Yeah.
Just a random player could come along and be like, no, you know what? Here you go. You're alive.
Here's some mercy. Sure.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a dynamic.
It's good, but there is one thing I will touch on, which, as we all know, the industry with AI, generative AI and stuff, the thing that makes me uneasy about it is that they do use AI voices in it, but it's on the more ethical side of it because they have paid and contracted people to use their voices. They're fully aware that it's being done and they're paid for it. But it doesn't really add anything to the game.
But they're not being paid as much as if the developers had a new script.
Yeah,
right? They have a new enemy type
And
or a new NPC in the hub world and a new script, and they hired the voice actor. Hey, can you come back and record some more lines? Right?
And it's like I'm torn between two worlds because the game itself is brilliant. It's got a brilliant design to it, but it does use a form of generative text to speech.
Yeah, and there's no telling if the training data that they used to actually build the models were paid actors too.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
I mean, I want to say that kind of practice will not be ramping up, but I feel like it definitely will be.
Yeah, it will be. It's everywhere. I mean, I got an email the other day and they were proud of this as well. The entire game was 100% AI generated. It went straight in the bin.
Slop the game.
Nick, what you been playing?
I've been playing a bunch of stuff. I finished Dispatch this month, which is just absolutely fantastic. You
amazing.
have to like those sort of Telltale type games, although it does have more gameplay than the older ones, because you have that whole dispatch mechanic where you choose the hero you want to send on which call based on the instructions that you've been given, and those heroes progress over time, and it also seems to feed into how they react to you a little bit as well, or the choices that you make. So it's a fantastic one, more like a interactive movie, but still wholly immersive, super gripping, great.
But super excellent writing. I mean, excellent writing and character interactions. I actually feel like these video game characters have chemistry with each other.
And the voice actors are excellent. It's just great. I've also played The Invincible, which is a indie title as well. I think it's relatively old, a few years old at least. It's kind of set in what they call an atom punk universe, so it's basically like space exploration, Cold War, but way more advanced with robots and nuclear spaceships and whatever. So the design is very rounded, very 60s aesthetic. And it's based on a graphic novel, I think from a Polish author. It's just fine. Again, it's a walking simulator. You don't do much. There's no combat, no nothing. But you investigate on a planet. You make choices that do impact the ending that you see. And it's beautiful. It's nice. I really enjoyed it. It was on sale on Steam. I finished it. It's 6 or 7 hours. The Invincible.
Oh, right.
I'll look into that.
It's pretty cool.
The aesthetic sounds pretty neat.
It's really nice looking. It's not the most advanced visual game, but there's an ambience to it. There's a mystery around the planet you're exploring, and why is no one remembering anything? It's pretty cool. And then I finished Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, the first one, not the bad one that they released, the old one that was on PS2, which is way harder than I remember, but pretty fun as well. And of course, there's Clair Obscur, which I've been playing an hour here, an hour there. I want to take my time.
You're a French
with
countryman.
it.
You're pretty much legally obligated to play that
game. And I played with the French voices as well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very cool. I must admit, I'm not a fan of this genre. I'm not a big fan of turn-based combat. I don't really enjoy the combat. I know people will get mad at me, but I just want to go on with the story, the universe. It's just beautiful. It's well narrated. It's super immersive as well. Really nice. So I put it on easy, so the combats are not a hindrance because I don't like those combats. But the whole story, everything's just fantastic. So I'm taking it one bite at a time, but it's cool.
Nice. Any others?
And I started Dredge as well, Soma as well, and The Medium as well. But again, I'm just dabbling in a few games here and there. Just I have a hard time like concentrating on a game for like 4, 5, 6 hours, unless it's very narrative, like Dispatch, for example, or The Invincible, because you can just go through it like a movie. But a game that involves a few more mechanisms and actual hiding, stealth, gameplay loops, etc., I find myself just being able to play them in 1 or 2 hour increments tops.
Nice. And I just want to throw in that I actually love the release strategy of Dispatch. I like that. I like when like streaming services release a show a week at a time.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that way about episodic games now. I think that was a neat way to release it, you know, build up a little bit of anticipation after you finish each chapter. Gardner, it's all you.
Oh boy, I've been very busy this week, or the last month even, and I've really only been going back to my old standbys. Dead Cells is just a brilliant game, and I've been playing that on my Steam Deck a lot. Dome Keeper. Have you heard of Dome Keeper? Oh, Liam, I saw you light up. Like, okay.
Great game.
Dome Keeper.
Tell us about it.
Is like if you crossed Dig Dug, Missile Command, and a roguelike. Yeah, it's so. It's so. Is that a good way to describe it, Liam?
I'm intrigued.
I kind
guess.
of. So okay, basically you this little tiny dude, and you have a dome, and then there are waves of enemies. It's like a tower defense too. So there's waves of enemies that come at you, and you have to like fight them off. And then you have to like buy upgrades for your dome, for your weapons and your defenses. And then you have to dig down underground under your dome and like find the resources you need to actually buy everything you need to upgrade. It's
sold.
It is the most addictive.
He's writing
game
it down so he doesn't forget.
Yeah, I wrote it down. Like I'm gonna go buy it just based on your description.
In my browser tab as well.
Yeah. It's literally the most addictive game loop I have ever played. It's so fun. And that's been consuming most of my time on my Steam Deck. And then obviously Beat Saber. I do that like almost daily. Okay. And then I've been playing Smash Remix on my N64 with my girlfriend. And it's super, super cool.
Are you looking into the analog 3D at all? Are you interested in that, or are you just going to stick with your OG hardware?
Not really. I have a Summer Cart 64, and so I don't. If I don't know, if I was to go into like that avenue, I'd probably just get like a generic FPGA. Actually, I already have a generic FPGA, and I never use it. I have the Mister. I almost never use it because I have the consoles I want to play.
Well, yeah, you know what? The original hardware is always the better. It's not going to be better fidelity-wise, maybe, but just experience-wise, I feel like it's always the better option. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have like a CRT right, like literally right here. I'm
so jealous.
And I play all of my games on that. So
that's rad.
Yeah.
That's
I
rad.
even had this CRT has an HDMI port in it. It was like the last one that Sony ever made. It has an HDMI like 0.9. Yeah. The HDMI is so old that it doesn't have the audio input. Like it doesn't do audio. So there's like a separate audio jack on the back for the HDMI port. And so but
I bet it's gorgeous though.
It's so beautiful. It's a widescreen CRT, and I had like my my living room gaming PC hooked up in here for quite a while, and I was playing all my favorite games in glorious 720p on this thing.
Glorious 720p. I love it. Is that super expensive these days? It probably is, huh?
Dude, I got this for free about 8 or maybe 9 years ago on Craigslist. This guy was like, I'm just getting rid of it. It's too heavy and I don't want it in my house anymore. And I'm like, bro, I will take that from you.
Dude made a huge mistake. Huge mistake. Oh, well. That's good. Good that you got the benefit of that. I have been playing mainly 3 games. I won't go into Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, because I pretty much have to echo everything that Nick said about it. I've got about maybe 25 hours into it and having a blast. I love the combat, but I find that there's really weird difficulty spikes, kind of unexpectedly difficult when you get into a new area. And it kind of forces me, at least, to go back and grind it out a little bit to level up my characters. But other than that, everything Nick said, just from the voice acting to the really imaginative worlds and the lore behind it. And then there's these mysteries that they don't actually just directly address that kind of keep you on the hook. And it's really a fascinating premise. Yeah. The other two I've been playing have been a little more suited towards my short attention span. The first one is the new Luminous Arise. That was a game back in the PSP days, I think. And they have a brand new version, and it's fantastic. Some of the music is a little grating, but visually it's just it's more luminous. If you liked Luminous, then you will love this. And the game that I actually have to strongly recommend to everyone in the world is called Sectori. And Sectori is a twin-stick shooter.
Yeah, that game rocks. I love that game.
It's a twin-stick shooter from a veteran developer who used to work at Housemarque, who did games like Super Stardust Delta and Returnal. It is developed only by him. He's the only developer, and then his brother did the music on it. And this is probably the best twin-stick shooter ever made.
Yeah. One of the best, absolutely.
It is very much, if you enjoyed Geometry Wars, this is 10 times better.
Oh.
So that's my pitch. If you liked Geometry Wars, if you liked the graphic style and the challenge of that, and it has a lot of the same I think Geometry Wars had this mode called passive or pacifism or something, where you don't use any of your weapons. You just crash through gates, and when the gates explode, that's how you decimate the enemies. It's got that kind of mode in it. It's really challenging and really simplistic, but I think it's one of the best games of 2025. Confidently, I can say that. And it's
what I like the most though is the way the arena changes as you play through it. Yeah. That was so cool.
So yeah, it's kind of a dynamic arena. So as you play through, there will be these walls that form. Either the entire arena changes, or these walls will form randomly, and you get this little red outline to show you that it's coming in, and you have to get out of there, and then there's boost mechanics where you can dash through enemies, and there's just it's and they don't just hold your hand. They're discover all these mechanics and have fun. It's fantastic. Sectori, Sectori. It's and it plays beautifully. You can turn your Steam Deck down to 7 to 10 watt TDP and still hit 120 FPS on it, or not 120, 90 FPS. I can hit 120 on my Legion Go S with SteamOS. Yeah. Which is really I said at the beginning of the show that it was about the screen size, but it's also about just that little extra performance bump that I get over the Steam Deck. For me, it was kind of like a Steam Deck 1.5. That's kind of how it felt to upgrade to that. But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Nice.
That's been a blast, you guys. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think we should address? Liam's debating whether or not to bring it up. I can tell. I can tell. Go ahead, man. It's okay.
So,
have your rant.
The more things change and improve with Linux Desktop, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
So I switched over from Kubuntu because I did a bit of a boo-boo and broke a partition. So I thought, you know what, screw it. I'll go with a completely different distro and distro hop, which I haven't done for ages. So I went with Fedora KDE because KDE is Plasma is, I love it. And I like my things to match as well, because you've got the Steam Deck, which has KDE Plasma as the desktop mode. I want the same across my devices. And so I installed Fedora KDE, and I was 4 days into using it, I think it was. And they pushed out a graphics driver update for Mesa, and that broke Steam games. And no games would work. Nothing. And no.
Would Steam would launch, but you couldn't launch it.
Steam would launch, but the games wouldn't load. And I went looking into it, and this was a known issue before they pushed out the update, but it was pushed out anyway. And that really, really annoyed me. And one of you was saying earlier, but I think it was you, Gardner, about how in a lot of people's mind, Linux is still like the matrix code, terminal, and all that. And we all joke about that. But then I became the joke of that because that same day that it happened, I was due to play online games with my friends. Aww. And when I eventually sorted it all out and got in, they joked about, oh, yeah, but you had to use a terminal. And it's like, did you? I actually did. I had to downgrade the graphics driver in terminal. It's something we're not supposed to do. It's 2025. Why do I have to do this? But
I'm sorry.
Something hopefully good has come out of it because they're looking at improving their processes for it. So I'm happy with what's happened as a result of it in the end. But I still think something like this never should have happened because if you're a maintainer involved in a Linux distribution and you can push out an update for a critical piece of the system where people have said it breaks all of this, that it just shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Did the maintainer have a response to that?
Yeah, they basically said, I don't care about Steam because it's not open source. You can't debug it properly. And then because of the replies to what they said, they quit as a maintainer. So
what?
Yeah. It got slightly heated on the Fedora discourse forum. I don't think they really should have quit. I mean, no one was being particularly horrible. We were just trying to find out how this could have happened. Like Fedora has this a karma system where people can leave notes whether an upgrade that's going through works properly or not. For some reason, that was disabled for this. It also had negative karma, people replying saying, again, it breaks stuff, but it was still pushed through. It shouldn't happen. There should be tests involved to stop this kind of thing, which is what they're going through and looking into now. So in future, it might not be an issue, but it was still 4 days it's using it. And I'm telling people, hey, this is cool. Fedora KDE is really nice, except when they push out a driver update that breaks everything.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was a bit of a yikes.
I'll be honest, that's why my production laptop, which is the one recording all of this and all my videos, I just don't distro hop on it. I just run the distro that came with it, which is Tuxedo OS. I don't touch a thing. I don't install anything that doesn't come from Flatpak. I don't touch repos. I don't add PPAs. Because I know, I know something is going to explode at some point if I do something, and I don't want to have to debug stuff. I don't want it.
Yeah, I have learned, and
I'll
I'm not
play
saying
around on other computers, but not on my main one. Yeah,
I'm not saying that you did this, Liam, not remotely, but I know that it's kind of to piggyback off what Nick said. I know that I love to tinker, and I will always tinker myself into an unusable distro. And so I'm kind of in the same situation now where like my production machine, I don't touch it. I'm never going to touch it. I'm not going to experiment or try to customize or do anything special. It's just, it's working great and I'm happy with it. So here's another machine for distro hopping. Yeah.
In my experience, Linux works best as an appliance. Like, you know, if you want something stable, you buy a device that had Linux shipped on it, and then you don't mess with it. And then you leave it to like, you know, like a Minis Forum or a little, you know, whatever PC, like your old laptop, whatever. That's what you experiment with. That's what you have fun with. But if you have to work with it, you've got to have an appliance, you know.
You stick with what works. But hey, when you have a problem in the partition and you have to reinstall, you don't really have a chance.
That's literally the only reason why I distro hopped is because Gparted crashed and annihilated a partition that Kubuntu was on. And there was no recovering it. So that was the only reason I changed. Otherwise, I just don't change. I install it. I don't even customize it. I've got the most basic KDE Plasma setup you can have, which is basically I've changed it to the dark theme. That's it. And
you know what? I'm glad, Liam, that you chose to air that out because I feel like I can sometimes get stuck in this mode where I'm like, Linux is all unicorns and rainbows, but you know, it's nice to have a reality check. We need a reality check once in a while. It's not perfect. And now, Gardner, because you said that about it being appliance, I want to change my bold 2026 prediction. I'm going to say
there's no take backs.
All right, I'm going to add one. I'm going to add one for people to think about. I think that we will see another dedicated SteamOS Steam machine from either Lenovo or Asus by the end of the year.
I mean, that's not even too out there. They've got the Legion Go.
This one, the Legion Go. The Legion Go S with SteamOS.
The one with the detachable sides. That's the Legion. Yes, the Legion Go 2, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, the 2 just escaped my radar because it was so ridiculously priced that I didn't even so expensive.
But they might perhaps do the same with a SteamOS version of that, maybe.
Yeah, if they do release a competing like console, it will be 3 times the price.
Yeah, yeah,
and maybe 3 times as powerful. Like, I don't know. Do you think we'll see like Minisforum do something like, here's a little small form factor console like box with SteamOS, something like that, maybe.
They're all getting ridiculous though. There's one of those handhelds coming out. Is it GDP? And it doesn't even have a battery in it.
What?
What's the
it's
point?
Just so powerful. They're like, nope. You need a 60 watt from the wall to play this.
Yeah, the battery is a full on battery pack. You have to plug in to it.
We're going backwards. We shouldn't be going backwards. We should have smaller batteries, more battery life. That's what we should be.
Thanks, NVIDIA.
Can't believe it.
Yeah, thanks, NVIDIA.
They looked at the Apple VR headset and they said, yeah, you know what? A battery clipped onto your belt, that looks cool.
That looks cool. People used to wear Walkmans. They'll put a battery on their belt. Sure.
Oh dear.
Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll do this again next month at some point. We'll figure that out. In the meantime, Gardner, where can we find you?
You can find me GardnerBryant.com or at Gardner_Bryant on YouTube.
Nick?
Just the Linux Experiment on YouTube, and you'll find everything else from there.
Everything there. Cool. Mr. Liam?
Just gamingonlinux.com.
I noticed that no one mentioned social media links. That's interesting. It's interesting. That's all. It's not a judgment or anything. It's just interesting, and I'm not going to mention them either. You can find me at linuxforeveryone.net. It's back. There's not a lot there, but it's back. And, of course, Linux for Everyone on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. And until we chat again, take care. Take care of each other. And you guys stick around.
Thank you.